We just crossed over 100 days. It was like 104, 105 days that we've had into this year. In that time, it's going to blow your mind how many days that Congress actually worked. We're paying them full-time money, but we're not really even getting part-time work. We're going to discuss it because for what we pay them in taxation and what we think we're supposed to have done for us, are they really representing us? That goes along with what Thomas Massey just said about lobbyists. He just dropped a monster bombshell on, is Congress really working for us or for lobbyists? We're going to discuss that. Trump comes out and says, well, let's play a little bit more of a hardball. He wants to ban stock trading for open members of Congress. I think this is a phenomenal move. You know how he had to put his money in blind trust? Most presidents do. You know how we see that the people that work in the administration, especially people that's done very well, they put their money to the side, they sell a lot of their options. Well, how's it fair that Congress can start buying stuff and can start learning a little bit more information about stock options, and for some reason they all make tons of money? Well, Trump's saying, I want to stop that. That is a bold move that will not get him a lot of favors in Congress. But to be honest with you, you stop lobbying, you stop stock trading, I bet you'd see a lot of these people get out of office because are they working for you or are they working for themselves? And then we're going to go to a few states. We're going to talk about Massachusetts and what they just did with some children in a family. You know, we talked about family yesterday, how important it is. And if you're the father or mother at home, shouldn't you be over your children? Not what this state says. Let's talk about what happened in Massachusetts. And also we're going to jump to Michigan. They're saying the quiet parts out loud. The one thing that we talked about the last few weeks about how we allow people to be in our country who don't love America. I'm going to tell you what this gentleman said, who is supposedly a citizen of America, but he has a ultimatum. It will blow your mind. We're going to talk about these stories and a few more. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to The Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. If you are new, please, we ask that you go down here, subscribe. Make sure you're subscribed. Give us a thumbs up. It's amazing how much we've been held down on this platform. But you know what? We're going to keep on pushing through, pushing on, and we need your thumbs up because that tells YouTube that this is an important video. Also, remember, we do a giveaway each and every month for our subscribers. Actually, Mr. Earl Shanner won it this last month. His gift is going out, I think, this week. I talked to Dorcade, and they're going to try to get that out to him this week. Also, we sent out some books from the other channels, too, so make sure you are subscribed to all three channels. And again, we humbly thank you for being a part of The Max. Now, let's jump into these stories because some of them are pretty intense. First, let's jump into some of these state issues because I think they're huge. And then we'll talk about Congress and then a few more stories. So please make sure that you're watching all the way throughout because there's a big announcement at the very end of this video. Now, number one, let's go to Massachusetts. Let's read what happened in Massachusetts. And the reason I want to bring this up is because I believe more than anything that parents should be the leaders of their homes, the leaders of their children. And we've seen slowly but surely these states, California being one, Oregon being another, Washington being another, Massachusetts, New York, where the states say, well, if you're not doing X, Y, Z, then we as a state can step in. Now, you've heard, no, that won't happen. That's actually happening in a lot of these states, where the states feel like their rights supersede the parents. All right, let's go to what Massachusetts just said. Massachusetts Department of Children and Families reportedly took custody of 5 children recently after a pediatrician reported their parents allegedly refused to get something in a 9-month-old baby due to religious beliefs. Now, didn't we just discuss this? How is it our rights as parents to decide what's best for our children? No, that wouldn't be harm. We understand that. But in actuality, if there is a religious belief, why are we not allowed to stand on that? We talked yesterday about these big monster idols that were being built in these states and these monster subdivisions built in these states to house their own kind of laws. But when someone says, well, because of my religious belief, I don't want to do what this doctor in this state is making us do. How dangerous is that? I'll tell you a situation with me. We live in a very conservative state. And of course, we didn't have any problems because, we do live in a conservative state and never go anywhere. It's a non-event. But we had a doctor, man, I mean, rake us over the coals or try to, about how we were, not doing this, not doing that, not doing this a few years ago, if you remember in 2020, about us and our children. And, it's funny how all this stuff comes out that ADHD was actually just not really a lot of truth to it. Go back, there's studies now done that the medicines that they've put these kids on are causing problems. We see that a lot of these issues with a lot of the things that we are not doing enough trials on are causing harm to our families. So sometimes wisdom may come from parents, because parents, we don't gain any funds by taking care of our kids. We love our children, okay? But this pediatric doctor who is threatening this, the big industries that are threatening this, the monopolies and the lobbyists and the Congress and all these people, these states, all these people that are threatening to take away children, which they did in this case in Massachusetts, they all have special interest in that. Do they care about that 9-month-old or all the other 4 children? I want you to ask yourself, do you think that the government can raise your children better than you can? Well, that's exactly what just happened in Massachusetts. All because they chose to say, we want freedom, and if we believe that this child should have this, we'll give it to them. If not, it's not an event. We shouldn't worry about it. This same argument's starting to go up pretty heavy in Texas over the Mennonite village and the measles outbreak. Where's the line? And we got to make sure this is not a slippery slope. Where is the line? Because now you're seeing states like Massachusetts take children, take families, break them up because they see better for their kids than what the parents do. Now, does that make sense to you? Doesn't to me. Did you know that when we allow our children to go to schools, schools supersede parents on a lot of things? Do you realize that? So we have to make sure that if you're putting your children in these big liberal cities, in these big liberal states, and you're putting them in public education, and you're putting them where government is raising your kids, don't be alarmed and don't be surprised when the government says, you're not fit to be a parent, we're better parents than you are. Because that's exactly what's happening in Massachusetts. By the way, you know when the parents tried to flee the state in Massachusetts, they were arrested. Don't let it get out of hand. Get out of these liberal states. I know you people are like, oh, I want to fight. I want to bring this state back. Why? At the risk of your children and your family? It's not worth it. Now let's go to Michigan. Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan are openly saying they're here to destroy America. This is a direct quote that was literally someone filmed on television and no one's talking about it. This American empire must fall. People are willing to fight and put their lives on the line to bring these Western empires down. This was from an Islamic leader in Dearborn. A direct quote now. This American empire must fall. People are willing to fight and put their lives on the line to bring these Western empires down. There was a story that said that they're willing to work as hard as they can to destroy what America has because they know they've pretty much taken over Europe, and this is their words. When America falls, it all falls. Why are we allowing this to take place? It was happening in Maine yesterday. We just talked about that. It's happening in Texas. Now it's happening, of course, Michigan is a hub. Are we allowing for literally people who hate America just to be here? And not just to say they don't like the president, not just to say they don't like Republicans, not just to say they don't like certain groups of men. They're saying they don't want America to be America as it is. They see a different America. Now, to me, you want to talk about a government going after somebody? They go after parents who want to have freedom for their children and arrest the parents, but then someone who directly quotes threats to America, they're okay with it? That's called freedom of speech? Isn't it amazing how that double standard doesn't really sit well, does it? Liberal ideology in these states are going to actually be the demise of America. Now let's jump into the Congress story, and then we have another pretty big story at the very end. Would you listen to what Thomas Massey just said? He said, I'm going to tell you about lobbyists in Congress. This is a direct quote. He said, a lobbyist can't buy me food, but I can go to lunch, pick up the tab, and the lobbyist can write me a $5,000 check to my campaign. And then my campaign can pay for the food. He said, so basically they can't pay for my food, but they can pay for my food. He said, the lobbyists, when they give you money, ostensibly, they are not giving you their money. They're not giving you their corporate money. They are giving you money from employees of that corporation who have pooled their money together in a club or group. And they've been persuaded maybe by their management to give a little back to this because their job would be more secure if they supported lobbyists in D.C. I can't even pretend to be surprised anymore. Congress is a den of liars and thieves. He said, this is how Congress works. He said they get around these loopholes and find ways to still get completely and utter tons of funds from lobbyists. He said they can't buy me food, but they can give $5,000 to my campaign, and then my campaign can buy the food. He said this is how it works. He said until we, and he's a congressman, until we clean some of this up, it will never change. And that's why I think it's so important to realize that no matter what Trump does, these special interests and these lobbyists still have their fangs into these Congress. And most of these congressmen are not Thomas Madison. They're weak. They're completely weak. I want you to listen to this. The House of Representatives have worked 25 days out of 105 days this year. Now, just think if you called your work and said, look, I know it's been 4 months, but of this 4 months, I'm only going to work a month. Maybe not even a month. Okay, maybe February. Oh, okay. So I want you to pay me my normal salary, and I'm not going to work January. I want off, Christmas. I'll work February because it's not a lot going on. I'm not going to work March because it's spring and, spring break. We'll take a month off for spring break. April, I'm not coming back yet. We'll come back maybe June. The Senate just did a big recess too, by the way. So you're paying these people top dollars. You just heard Thomas Massey say how they're getting money, basically funneled into them. And we're okay with this? We're okay with this? So I think this is a good move that what Trump just came out and said. Trump just came out and stated that he wants to ban stock trading by congressmen. This is a monster move. U.S. President Donald Trump is considering supporting legislation that would ban members of Congress from trading stock, amid concerns of potential conflict of interest and insider trading. This initiative followed remarks by Trump's advisors that this would be in line with legislative proposals brought by Senator Josh Hawley and plans to reintroduce it, and he backs it wholly. Now what he's doing is he wants to try to cut them from just getting exploited. He wants to cut them from actually making deals based on what their wishes are and not the American people. See, this is what happens. And this is, if you can go back and look and investigate yourself, but what happens is these people make, $150,000, $190,000, $200,000 a year, which is it's very good income. You see that they're not working, but maybe a few months a year. So they're taking advantage of that. On top of that, money is flowing into them. So the money that they're utilizing, their campaigns are paying for. So they're not actually having to pay for hardly anything. They just call them campaign expenses. Then they're taking a lot of that excess money and they get knowledge. Somehow just knowledge on laws and regulations that somehow they kind of know who to pick the winners and losers are in the stock market. And all of a sudden, most of them get completely filthy rich. And this is not just a Democrat thing. It's not just a Republican thing. It's a Congress thing. Most of these people get filthy, filthy rich. You can say it from AOC to Jasmine Crockett. They're both millionaires based on this. You can say it from MTG. You can say it from any member of Congress, from Republican to Democrat. Every one of them have gotten pretty much filthy rich off this. I'd say 95%. Go look. There's some people that's made hundreds of millions of dollars. And so you think that they're going to allow this to pass and they're just going to take it? This is where it becomes a game of we can't keep the status quo. And for so long, you have so many people pushing the status quo. Do you realize this? I want you to go back and look. Trump's approval rating right now, with people. I'm not talking about the media. I'm not talking about big business. I'm not talking about lobbyists. I'm not talking about Congress. His approval with the normal American is at an all-time high. There's a new report that came out that said it's 58%. You know what that shows? It shows that people are sick of what Congress is doing. People are sick of what the judiciary are doing. People are sick of the status quo because it's breaking people. They can't afford to live anymore. So Trump coming out saying we're going to look at banning stock trades for Congress. I think that's a great move because they have knowledge that no one else has. How's that fair? If that's fair, then we need to make sure that everything's disclosed. Well, you can't do that because people have private businesses and also things that they need to hide in the business that doesn't need to be, non-confidential. Well, the Congress shouldn't be able to act upon that. It's amazing how we think that that's okay, but then we will arrest people like Martha Stewart and people, the private citizen. If they do that, they go to jail. But Congress can do it all day. It's unbelievable. So I think this is a good move by Trump. And I think this goes along with what Thomas Massey was saying. Even though Thomas Massey and Trump do not get along, it's funny because they speak on a lot of the same things. They just go about it a different way. But both of them are talking on very valid points of how the Congress is pretty much taking advantage of the American people. And so I think this would be a good move. Mokana or Rokana, whatever his name is, from California, the Democrat side is actually pushing for the same thing. So we have bipartisanship on this issue. The thing is this, though. If you only have 5 to 10 people talking about it, and then the president talking about it, the question is, how many more Congress in are you going to get on that? Because most of them are getting filthy rich off lobbying firms and stock trading. It's a big deal. Let's pay attention to these stories, because I think that this should happen, and we should make sure that we as Americans push for this to take place. Again, Trump's approval ratings is higher than it's ever been. So when you hear about the tariffs and the media going crazy, the American people are actually not. And here's what I want to kind of make sure that we really understand this. Even though I don't agree with everything Scott Bessent stands for, Scott Bessent did this with George Soros, with Druckenmiller. They did this in Great Britain. They did this with the pound, what they're trying to do to China with the yuan. Might be wrong, but it is literally setting up to almost the same thing, to where if China chooses not to come to the table, they can devalue their monies and cause a major problem for them later on. Scott Bessent's been on this road in the private sector. So I don't think that this tariff situation or this negotiation thing is going to come lightly. And I believe it's actually going to still come out and benefit Americans. It's just we have to pay attention. Don't listen to your congressman, and don't listen to the media, because remember, they're the ones making tons of money off this, off the stock market. So when all this money starts going down, it's funny, because the people that are complaining the most are the congressmen and the uber rich billionaires and businesses, not the American people. So pay attention to these stories. Congress needs to go back to work for less, no stock trading, and no lobbyists. And I think we actually would see things actually happen in America. Until that, though, like Thomas Massey said, it's just a den of thieves. All right, so now some very serious stories. And I told you this is some things that we need to talk about. Pete Hegseth just dismissed 2 people out of the Pentagon for leaking. One was escorted out, which was part of his top advisory. There was another gentleman that was part of his chief of staff, also escorted out. What we're seeing is getting rid of people who may not have the best intentions of America in heart. Anyone that's leaking information, especially if things are not, this is not a situation where things are bad. It's just simply leaking to the media to try to expose and try to hurt the Trump campaign. Well, to me, if I own a business, and I do, if I own a business and I had an employee who was literally trying to defy me in everything that we did, why would I want to keep him there? Do you get what I'm saying? So it's the same precedent. I think that by him kind of getting some of these people out is a good thing. I think the more that we see Doge doing things, the more we see arrest for some of these things, which I believe Pam Bondi's not doing a good job here. And then the more we see people like this escorted out, gotten out fired, even prosecuted if it's things that should be prosecuted against. The more we see that is a good thing. I think we need to get people that don't love America out of government, because if they don't love America, then they're not going to support what America stands for. They're not going to push for what America believes in. They're not going to work for the president. I mean, again, no matter what you say about whichever president, if the president comes into leadership and he has people that are under him that does not support him, either side, they should have the right to get rid of those people, especially if they find out that they are doing things that are insubordinate. And it's really good to see that some of the stuff that kind of fell out with that Signal stuff and Pete Hegseth, a lot of that was from, they're saying, these leakers. So I'm glad to see that we're actually making some inroads into getting some of these people out of government. If we want a government that actually works, we got to get the people out that don't like the government. We have to get the people out that want to hurt America. Just like I was telling you about my business. If I had an employee that did not want to work for me and wanted to ruin my business, I don't think I want him working for my business anymore. Wouldn't you think? Now I want to bring up one more story, because this is probably the biggest story that I think we need to pay attention to. Because the trade tariffs talks and all that, it's getting intense. But I told you with this peace negotiations that's happening in Russia-Ukraine situation with Witkoff and with the Trump administration really trying to fix the issues going on, we need to pay attention to the fact that there's a lot of money to be made even in these wars. And I think that you're seeing that with Europe, and you're seeing that with even some of these congressmen. But the reason I want to bring this up is because the more we see peace trying to take place, the more I think you're going to see escalation in this war. Let's talk about it right quick. It says Russia's mysterious doomsday radio station, UVB-76, just sent out 4 eerie cryptic messages in only 24 hours. Active since 1975, this Cold War era shortwave station usually emits nothing but static buzz until something big is about to happen. Its true purpose remains a mystery, but many believe it's linked to secret military operations or even nuclear protocols. I think a lot of that's kind of like the tariff things. We just keep raising tariffs because it's part of the negotiation. However, I think like China and America both know we need each other for trade. It's just truth. I mean, Walmart just came out and stated they were at the biggest trade fair that China puts on. So we know each economy needs each other. Even though we don't like each other, we know each other depends on the import and exports of goods. Just like the chips. We need the chips and the semiconductors. China needs the technology and the semiconductors. I mean, it's just a simple, adversarial relationship that both depend on each other. The difference with Russia-Ukraine situation is Russia wants to do business with the rest of the world. However, the rest of the world somehow is getting loads of funds and loads of money and has special interest in Ukraine. So yes, one side wants to negotiate, and America is standing on that side of negotiation. Actually, China is standing on the side of Russia, but both still wanting negotiation. But the rest of NATO seems like they don't want negotiation. So what we've seen is escalated attacks with drones. You see attacks on cities. You see attacks on churches. You see attacks on casualties. On both sides now, I'm not making light of Ukraine or Russia, both sides now are starting to hit targets that house, really signs of true war. They're hitting people groups, and they're hitting people, and they're hitting special places that are kind of off the grounds of the battleground. The battleground's one thing, but then when you start hitting big cities that have nothing to do with what the war is going on, it starts really showing the ramifications of escalation. Well, you hear of doomsday clocks, and you hear of doomsday radios, and you hear the nuclear talks are going, and they're moving military subs. The scary thing is, we're just one spark away from something like that majorly going off. Not because America's doing anything wrong, and not actually because maybe the negotiations are breaking down. It's because the special interest, even in wars, as sad and as evil as it is, could be pressing because they know they're making hundreds of billions of dollars off of this. I just want to make sure that we all understand. When we hear about the Middle East, we hear about Russia, Ukraine, we hear about China, Taiwan, we hear about all these little wars going on, these battles, these conflicts. Civil wars have been happening for a long time, meaning regional wars, area disputes. When the nations in the world get involved in territorial disputes, we're setting up for a powder keg to blow off. And that's how world wars start. If we don't want world wars to start, we need to listen to what America's trying to do and build trade and peace. Unlike our allies, unlike any of our allies, other than like Hungary that's in the EU and NATO, which is still wanting to escalate this war. Then you hear all of a sudden that Russia says, you know what? Well, if they're going to keep on escalating, we're going to prepare. And radios that hadn't been active for years upon years upon years are active. And they're only active because most cryptic messages and most secretive things that are taught is when these are active, nuclear capabilities are moving. And their military is aggressively looking at opportunities for nuclear war. Is this really what we want? If we don't want it, then let's press for peace. But we have to quit listening to the media and quit listening to the EU countries that have special interests there. I think what Trump is trying to do with Russia, Ukraine is a good thing. But I'm scared that as it gets closer and closer to agreements and negotiations, I think you're seeing an escalation. And all of a sudden, Russia pulls out what he calls the doomsday radios that shows that they may be escalating to nuclear war. Pretty big deal there. Pay attention to that story. It's not about fear. It's about being prepared and making sure that you have everything you need. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Again, please, we ask that you share our videos because we have been severely held down. So we're asking that you help support us by giving us a thumbs up, share, and comment below. Tell us what you think about the video. And what's your thoughts on Congress? I mean, are they really working for you? After you hear they only work for 25 days of 105, and there's a lot of shady things going on. Pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention to it. Guys, thank you for watching. God bless.